So we're going to spend the majority of the time today talking about the compliance process and how to not only get all of your files into Command, but then how to submit them to the office and how to go through the approval process to make sure that you guys can get paid on time at closing, okay? So if you have any questions along the way, feel free to interrupt me and ask. If I'm just not hitting on things that you guys want to know about, just feel free to unmute yourself and speak up. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Let's see here. Okay. So when I'm in screen share mode, I can't see everybody that is on the call. So again, if you do need something or have a question, just unmute yourself and feel free to interrupt me. So we're going to start off by going into Command and first talking about how to create an opportunity. And so Command, and actually for those of you that are video on, can you see my screen? Can you give me a thumbs up? Awesome. Okay. So Command, as I'm sure most of you are somewhat familiar with it by now, but there's a lot of different functionalities within Command. What we're going to focus on today is kind of that CRM piece, so the customer relationship manager piece, so where we house our database, and then also our sales pipeline process, okay? So you can see on my screen here, this is my database, my contacts that I've entered into Command. And in order to create an opportunity, which an opportunity in Command, that's what it's titled, an opportunity. So if you on the left side of your Command screen, about halfway down, there's two hands shaking. And if you hover over it, it says opportunities. So an opportunity is the sales pipeline. So that's how to think about that. Before you can enter anyone into your opportunities or sales pipeline, they first have to be added as a contact in your database, okay? So the very first step when you have a lead, you meet someone, or you think that eventually they may turn into a customer, is to make sure you enter them in as a contact into your contacts or your database, okay? So that's this screen here. Just 1 second. All right. So in order to do that, you're going to hit add contact. It's pretty easy, pretty self-explanatory. They've made the system pretty user-friendly. You're going to fill out all the information here. The more information you have, the better. But I would say the very minimum that you want is a name, an email, and a phone number. Okay. You can add, there's a more information button where you can add a lot of different other information about them. But to start, the very basics, name, email, phone number. I'd recommend that to have for every contact you add, okay? So once you have your contact added and you want to create an opportunity for them. And today we're going to focus kind of on the buyer side. I think that a lot of people on this call, most likely newer agents, and not for everybody, but for most newer agents, the majority of their business is buyer focused. So we're going to kind of go through the process with a buyer client today. And it's pretty much the same if you have a listing, but we're going to do a buyer side today. So if you have someone that you've met at an open house or you've spoken to that may be interested in buying a property in the future, you want to create an opportunity for them as a buyer, okay? So again, this is your sales pipeline to kind of keep track of what you have coming up in the future so nothing falls through the cracks. So in order to create a new opportunity, you're going to again click on the two hands shaking here. Click create opportunity at the top right. And then you're going to fill in the information on this, the screen that pops up. Obviously, everything with the red star is required, okay? So it's going to auto-populate your market center. If you're on a team, it gives you the ability to select a team. Opportunity type, so is it a listing? Is it a buyer? Is it landlord tenant, which likely not going to be that, but today we're going to focus on buyer. If you're the owner or if you're on a team and you need to assign that to a team lead, that will show up here. And then this is why you have to create the client or add the client into your database first. So it's going to ask for the client name, and it will not allow you to add someone who's not already added as a contact. So that's why they need to be in the contact section first. So you start typing the name, it'll pull up all of your contacts that have that name. You click on the correct one. You can also add a co-buyer. So in my database, I have, I'm going to use myself as an example today. I have my husband who is attached to my my contact sheet as a related contact. So that automatically pops up. I can select him. And then it's going to ask for an opportunity name. So it automatically will name the opportunity, the name of the client dash what type of opportunity it is. You can change this. You can leave it if you want, but you can change it. So at the time of creating a buyer opportunity, you probably don't have an address associated with them yet, right? They probably are just starting their search, or maybe not even to that point yet. Or if you're a procrastinator, like I know a lot of agents are, maybe you're not doing this until they're under contract, which I don't advise. But if you have the address name, you can put it here. Otherwise, you can name it whatever opportunity name you would like. And I do believe you can change that later on once they do go under contract. If you have an estimated close date, you can fill that out. Fill out anything that has the red star here, okay? Opportunity phase. Cultivate is if there's someone that maybe has expressed interest in buying or selling, but they're not quite there yet, and you want to cultivate that lead to become a customer or client. They're in the appointment phase, so you're setting up that consultation appointment with them, or if they're active, they've signed a contract with you and they're actively out searching, okay? So I'm going to add this contact as an active one today, and they're going to be in the searching. Let's put them in the searching stage for now. Let's go with that. Okay, so I'm going to create this opportunity. Okay, any questions so far on creating an opportunity? So I want you guys to think about Command as your filing cabinet. So in addition to your sales pipeline, your CRM, your database, all these other things, today we're focused on compliance, okay? And I want you to think about the compliance process within Command as your filing cabinet. So 10 years ago, we didn't have this technology that we do today. And the state law requires that not only the agent, but also the brokerage keep records of files for every transaction. So 10 years ago, you would have handed in a physical file with all of your paperwork, and one of the supervising brokers would have gone through it to make sure it was complete, and then they would have put it in a filing cabinet, okay? Think of that, think of this system as that filing cabinet for you, okay? It is the place to store all of your documents, so we are compliant with state law, and also so you have easy access to them in the future. So that is the lens we're going to kind of look through today as far as Command, because Command is very powerful. It does a lot of different things. We're focused on that compliance, file, submission, and keeping side of things. So once you have your opportunity created, that is the first step before you can get to that compliance side. It's going to bring you to the detail section of the opportunity. So here you can fill in more information. There's a general information section, and it will auto-populate things that you've already filled in. But again, there's no such thing as too much information. So fill in all the information that you have. And in order to do that, you can just click on this pencil, and it will bring you to the editing page, and you can add in all the information you want. Now, if you're already under contract and you know what your estimated close date is, let's see, there's an estimated close date option here. Please, please, please fill that in, okay? As soon as you know that, fill that in this information section, because that helps me when I'm reviewing files and I sort by soonest close date first. That helps me make sure that I'm reviewing files before they close and hopefully getting you paid at the closing table. So if this is not filled out, then your file could just sit at the bottom of my queue if I'm sorting by close date, okay, because it doesn't have a close date entered. So please make sure to fill out your estimated close date as soon as you know that. Then also, as soon as your client is under contract, or if it's a listing, make sure you're filling in the property address here. And you can just start typing and it will pull in, I think it pulls addresses in from the neighborhoods function of the system, but it should auto-populate almost everything for you. So it's pretty easy to do, only takes a second, hit save, boom, it's there. The reason to fill that out is if we need to find a file in the future, or you send me an email and ask about a file and you only reference the opportunity name, right? You say, oh, my file, Amy Campbell-buyer, I have a question of this and this and this. That it's really hard for me to search and find it if I don't have the address, and if the address is not entered here. So the easiest, quickest way to find a file, especially if it's months into the future, or we need to pull something up, we need this property address filled out so we can bring it up easily. So please make sure you're filling that out as soon as you know it. Okay, so now that we've created the opportunity, I'm going to kind of switch gears a little bit and talk about our documentation and getting our documentation filled out, signed, and then after that is done, how do we add it to command? So let's see. Again, I think we have mostly newer agents here. Is there anyone on the call today that does not use CTM? And again, it's hard for me to put in the chat if you are a non-CTM user. And if you don't know yet, if you haven't gotten to the point in your business, that's okay. But if you do not use CTM and you're only using DocuSign or some other system to fill out your contracts, drop that in the chat. But I think most of us are using CTM. So I'm going to focus on that today. If you are a DocuSign user, then feel free to reach out to me after this call, and between myself and Steven, our tech guru, we'll make sure that you fully understand how to fill out your documents and get them uploaded into command, okay? I will tell you that CTM is not a perfect system. There are a lot of things that I don't like about it. However, we're not forced to use it, but the majority of agents in the Denver area are using CTM for document creation and to sign and send documents, okay? So it is an additional paid for service, but I do recommend signing up for it if you haven't yet, because especially in this competitive market, if you're working with buyers and the listing agent uses CTM, they likely want all of their contracts submitted via CTM. You can link with their transaction and send contracts that way. So Samantha just mentioned she needs training on CTM. So CTM actually has their own trainings, which I highly recommend. It's going to be a little more robust than we're going to go into CTM today and kind of talk about a little bit about how to add documents, how to get them signed. So very high level overview today. But if you need more in-depth training on CTM, they have a ton of training opportunities. They have live training opportunities. They have videos. So if you have an account and you've signed up already, just go into CTM and you can find those there. They also have a support number that you can call. But I do recommend paying for the service because if for the only reason, we need to do what we can right now in this market to help our buyers win. And if a listing agent is using CTM and you're in competition and all other offers are submitted via CTM and you submit an offer via DocuSign or via email, that is already a negative mark against your buyer because you're making that listing agent's life a little bit harder, okay? Because now that offer is not housed in CTM for them. And it's harder for them to get their clients to sign it if it gets to that point. So I recommend it for that reason. And then also, I think it is a superior system to DocuSign as far as drafting contracts. So DocuSign has some, I don't find DocuSign very user-friendly, but some people really love it. I'm not a DocuSign expert, so maybe it's just that I don't know the system as well as I could. But I think when you draft contracts in CTM, it's easier, it's more legible, and there's some features like our integrated clause manual. So we have clauses that our attorney has drafted for us. For example, appraisal gap clauses, escalation clauses, things like that that are drafted by our attorney for us to use. That clause library is integrated into CTM for us. So it's really easy to add those clauses to our contracts. So for all those reasons, I prefer CTM over DocuSign. However, you do not have to use CTM. If you are at a point where you just feel like you can't spend the money on a subscription to CTM right now, DocuSign is free. It is included in our KW tech fee. So if you are, if you really want to use DocuSign solely, then just reach out to me and or Steven after this training, and we'll just make sure that you fully understand the whole system and how to submit your documents with DocuSign. So today we're going to focus on CTM. So go into CTM here, and this is your CTM homepage. Okay, if you've never created a transaction, this is going to be blank down here. But once you create transactions, similar to, oh, and Kendra, thank you. The first month of CTM is free. So feel free to sign up for that free month so you can use it and learn it and see if it's something you want to continue doing. So similar to Command, it creates, like once you create a file, it will save that digital file on here per client name, okay? Unlike Command, you do not have to create a contact first in order to create the file, okay? So once you have a client, today we're gonna focus on buyers. So say you have a buyer that is ready to sign an agency agreement with you and they wanna start their search. You can go into CTM and hit create new contract. And this is going to bring up a list of any document that you'll ever need for any transaction, okay? So if you ever need or want to know what documents, what state approved documents are available to us, this is your list. And then we also have, so I guess at the top here, we have our listing contracts. So exclusive right to sell, lease, tenant listing, and exclusive right to buy for buyer agency. We have our sale contracts, our contract to buy and sell, depending on what type of property it is. And then we have disclosures. And then we have additional documents like closing instructions, we have amendments, counter offers, and things like that. And then if you keep scrolling down, we have addenda and the section for other forms is kind of a miscellaneous section, but for example, if you ever need seller net sheet, that's here. Notice to terminate is here. So take some time when you're in CTM and just read through this list to familiarize yourself with all the documents that are available for us to use and fill out. And then if you scroll down a little farther, as soon as you get to the section where there's the green smart tag next to the document name, that means that these forms are not the state approved forms, okay? So these forms were either created by, you can see here, the Colorado Association of Realtors, Colorado Bar Association, and then we have the section at the bottom, Damien Cox Forms. So for those of you who don't know, Damien Cox is our brokerage attorney, and he has created a bunch of forms for us, as you can see. And there are some that we are going to use for every single transaction, okay? And so those are under the Damien Cox Forms. And then we have DORA 2020 forms, DORA 2021 forms, and EPA brochures. So any document you ever might need is housed here in CTM. So if you have a buyer who wants to sign a buyer agreement with you, you're first going to come here. And then you can see up here, these first two sections, they have what's parentheses that say parent. So these are parent contracts. You need one parent contract for every file. Okay, so that's kind of the main contract, and all the other documents are associated with that contract. So the system will only let you choose one document at a time unless you click this quick start button here. So if you click quick start, it says create parent contract and disclosures at once. Okay, so I recommend doing this. It saves a little bit of time. There's 3 documents in which you're going to need for every buyer file. Actually, let me hop back to command really quick. In the documents section, if you're ever wondering what documents do I need, and what documents in CTM should I be filling out, in the documents tab of command, depending on what checklist you pick, but we're going to pick residential today. That's the most likely one, or one you're going to use most often. This creates a file with folders for you that give you a list of documents that you're going to need depending on your transaction. So as you can see over here, so right now, picture this as I have my buyer file, my Amy Campbell buyer file. Within that file, I'm going to have 3 folders: a consultation folder, an under contract folder, a closed folder. So at this point, we're at that consultation phase, okay? And so if I can't remember what documents I need when I'm filling them out in CTM, or trying to figure out what documents should I be filling out and having signed in CTM, come here and use this as your checklist, okay? So this will show you there are 3 required documents for every buyer consultation folder. You have your exclusive right to buy, right? So that's your agency agreement. And we have a buyer advisory. We have a COVID-19 buyer advisory, which I'm hoping at some point, sooner than later, will go away. But for now, it's still required, okay? And then there's some documents that are conditionally required depending on the transaction and if they apply or not. But for now, for this situation, or pretending that we are starting an agency relationship with a buyer. So this will tell me I have 3 required documents, okay? So I'm going to go back into CTM, and I know that I need my exclusive right to buy right here. And then command told me I need my buyer advisory. And so the buyer advisory, if I scroll down to the bottom, there are 2 buyer advisories listed in CTM. There's one under the Colorado Association of Realtors, and there's one under Damien Cox. If there is a form drafted by our attorney that also exists somewhere else, always use our attorney drafted form, because that form was drafted specifically for us, for our brokerage, to protect us as agents, okay? So do not use the Colorado Association ones, use the Damien Cox ones. So it's going to say buyer advisory, Then depending on what type of property they're purchasing, there's a commercial, residential, or vacant land option. So we're gonna do the residential one today. And this form is just it's a disclosure form. It's not a contract, but it's just a disclosure form that we are required to provide to the buyer that says, hey, FYI, just an advisory, these are some of the things that can happen in a transaction, or these are some of the things that we're advising you of as a buyer. So we require this for every buyer transaction and buyer file. And then that third document we need was the buyer COVID-19 advisory. Again, use the one under Damien Cox. You can use the car one, but again, if Damien's created one for us, there's a reason for that. So use that one, buyer COVID-19 advisory. And then you'll see here, if you do have a seller side, there's the same thing, seller advisory and seller COVID-19 advisory. Okay, so I have our 3 required documents checked. I'm going to hit create selected contracts, and that's going to pop up the exclusive right to buy listing contract. Now today is not a class on how to fill out contracts, so we're not going to go through that right now. But once you do have this filled out, let me hit save here. Then you can X out of that, and then it will show up in your CTM file. Okay, so if you ever need to go back into it, just click on it here. However, you'll notice that on this screen, those 2 other required documents aren't showing. And there's a reason for that. It's a little annoying, but only the state approved contracts will show up here. If you're adding other documents to CTM to fill out and sign that are either our attorney forms or the car forms, that the ones that had the smart tag next to them, those are housed somewhere different. So over here in our menu, under Docs Management, you will find any additional forms that you added to the transaction. Now, if you need to add signatures or to fill out something or to edit something on one of these documents, click on this little paper with the globe icon, and that will open up the smart contract option. And from here, you can add signatures if you have to, or edit it if you have to. Most of the time, you won't need to. It should auto-populate the buyer name if you have entered that in. I haven't filled out the actual contract yet. So once you fill out your exclusive right to buy form, it will auto-populate the necessary information into these other contracts, okay? So you scroll down to the bottom, it will auto-populate signature boxes for anyone that you've entered on that contract. And then auto-populates one for you as the agent. And oh, sorry, Ashley, just saw your question. What are the ones we use for every transaction? So for every buyer, again, if you go into command, you use that as your checklist. The ones that are marked required are for every buyer file. So your exclusive right to buy, so your agency contract, unless they're being treated as a customer. So if you have no relationship with them, but if you have a agency relationship with them, exclusive right to buy, buyer advisory, and the COVID-19 buyer advisory. So if you ever are wondering what documents are needed for each situation, use command document section as your checklist. Okay, so back to the smart contract. So if you ever needed to fill or add a signature box or a check box to a document, you can do that here by choosing who the signature is going to be for. I'm the only person that's currently added to this file right now, so it's not giving me any buyer name options or anything like that, but it would if you added buyers to the contract. But to add anything, excuse me, just go over here and drag and drop. You can drag and drop a signature, can drag and drop initials. You can drag and drop a checkbox. So anything that you need to add to a document that is one of these smart documents, you can do that easily by dragging and dropping here, okay? So once you have your disclosures or non-state approved forms ready to go, let's go back to our main page here. And so you have your exclusive right to buy all filled out and ready to send to your client for signatures. Make sure you first hit enable web signatures for all contracts. Enable all. If you send it to them before you enable those signatures, they won't be able to sign. It'll just send it as, you know, non-editable, non-signature option form that they can review. But if you want them to sign it, make sure you're enabling those signatures first. And the easy way to tell if it's been enabled is this little icon with the paper with the pen pops up. That means that the signature boxes have been enabled. And your clients will be able to e-sign. And then you hit email contracts. Put in their email, put in a subject, put in a little note about what you want them to do. And then at the bottom, you can select which contracts you want to email to them, okay? So once that is done, and your documents have been signed, and you're ready to upload them into your command to start the compliance process, what you need to do is first download them on your computer so then we can get them into command. I'm hoping one day they'll create an easier way to, for example, before command we used .loop, and I don't know if anyone here used .loop at any point in time, but we were able to email documents directly into .loop. I'm hoping for that feature in the future with command. Until then, we have to download them, then upload them into our command. So for the state approved forms, if you go into the form, again, once it's all signed and executed, and don't forget, you also as the agent need to sign your listing contracts. And in this case, the buyer advisory also requires our signature. On the listing side, there's a couple other forms that require our signature: square footage disclosure, the lead-based paint, and I think that's it. Any, if there was any amendment to a listing contract, that requires your signature. So make sure that you as the agent are signing a document when required to. And the easiest way to do that, so if you click on it and then go into the signature view option, scroll down, you can easily sign. Select your font, hit save, accept, boom, you've signed the document. Okay, only takes a second. So then once you're ready to download it, just go to click on the document within CTM, it opens, and click PDF print. And again, depending on what type of computer you have, it might look slightly different on how to download, but usually it's pretty self-explanatory to figure out. You're going to download it onto your computer. Name it whatever you want. NCLA. And for the smart contracts, ones that weren't the state approved ones, remember they're in our docs management tab. These have nice, easy download buttons that you just click on and it will download it without having to open the document. Okay. So once you have your documents downloaded that you need for your file, you're going to go back into command. And like I said before, we're going to click on the Documents tab within our transaction. And you're going to select the correct option here, depending on if it's a residential, a new home build, or a commercial buyer. And again, this is because in this initial detail section, we selected that it was a buyer file. That's where auto-populated this. It's only giving us buyer file options. On a listing side, there would be listing file options here, and they look a little bit different with different required documents. So for this buyer file in our documents section, And I should say that the office policy is once you have a signed contract, please upload that into your document section and submit that to the office within 48 hours of it being signed. Okay, so that starts the compliance review process and lets the office know kind of what you have going on and what agency contracts you have signed. So I would say it's definitely important to pay attention to that deadline or get it submitted to the office as soon as possible once you are under contract. We do prefer that your agency contracts are submitted within 48 hours after being signed. But I understand sometimes we forget or we get busy and we go a little beyond that. But for your under contract files, the reason that we have that deadline is to give enough time to get through the compliance, the review process. So once you submit a file, I'm notified that it needs to be reviewed. I review every single document within that file to make sure that it's filled out properly, signed by everyone that needs to sign it, and that there aren't any missing documents in the file that are required by the state or our attorney. And once your files are complete, you will get something called a DA, which we'll talk about in a little bit, and that allows you to get paid at closing. So that's the whole point of this, is so we can get paid and get paid at closing. Okay, so I would say that's the whole point. The whole point is to follow the state law, right, of file submission and file record keeping. But your motivation comes from wanting to get paid on time. Okay, so but that's why we have that 40-hour rule, just so we have enough time to go through that whole review process. And we understand you don't have all the documents right away in an under contract situation, but that's okay. As soon as you have that contract, whether it's an agency contract or a contract to buy or sell, executed and signed, start this document upload process and submit it to the office, okay? So how do we get our documents into our command file? So right now I'm in my consultation folder, and to the right of each placeholder, so these are just placeholders, there's no documents in here right now, it's just a checklist to let you know what's needed. So you can add files this way, one by one, or up here there's an attach multiple files option. If you click on this, you can actually save a little bit of time and attach these files all from this one window and upload them all at once. So you can drag and drop them. So let's see, my buyer agency here, my advisory here. Oop, did I just do that wrong? I did. Okay, my COVID advisory there, and then my buyer advisory here. So you can drag and drop them, or you can click and browse on your computer for any files that you have saved to your computer. So there's a couple different ways to find them. As soon as you have what you want in the right places, hit attach, and it will add those documents to the placeholders that are there. Once you have all the documents in that folder that you need, you can go ahead and submit it to the Market Center. So submit to MC. Then actually, I'm not going to actually submit it because then I'll have to go in and figure out what to do. So it's not showing as a task on my end, but just hit the submit to MC button. Once you do that, the status over here will change to submitted, okay? Once I review the file, I will either change the status to returned or approved. We have a couple of questions here. So each time we upload a document, we submit to MC, or, so good question, Brittany. Oh, I'm writing this question. So it depends on, it actually depends on the file. So in the case of your consultation folder, you should have all three of these documents at the same time, right? We should be having the buyer sign our agency and these two advisories all at the same time. So you should have them ready to go, upload them and submit. Now, later on, you might have an amendment to your agency contract or a referral agreement or something like that you add later on, and then you can just submit it again. You can submit your file as many times as you need to. If you submit it and there's a mistake, and I'll tell you probably the number one mistake with the exclusive right to buy is agents just forgetting to sign it. They have their client sign it, but then they forget to sign it. So if there's something that needs attention on that document or changed, or there's something missing from the file, I will return it to you. And I will either approve or return each individual document, and then I will approve or return the entire folder. If not everything is approved, I'll return the folder. The way that you'll know what needs attention is if there's a document that's been returned, it'll say, over here, it'll say returned in red. And there will be a little bubble here with it kind of looks like this, the comment bubble that you can hover over, and I'll leave a note of why I'm returning it. Say, hey, you forgot to sign it, or this section wasn't filled out, or this box wasn't checked. So you'll know it's pretty obvious why something was returned, okay? However, if you ever have any questions or you want to communicate something to me about the file, there is this comments section up here. So for every folder has its own comment section. So you can add a comment. And if you use the @ symbol, the leadership team will pop up, and my name would pop up. I believe it would pop up first. Obviously, I'm in my own file, so it's not popping. It doesn't give myself the option to @ myself, but just so @ click my name and then leave me a message. Or if there's something unusual about the file, just anything that would be helpful for me to know, you can leave a message here in the comment section. Britt, if an agent has an urgent question mid-compliance, what is the best way to communicate with you? Thank you for asking. I was just about to say, I do not monitor these very closely, because if I got notified every time somebody left a comment in one of their files, I would get nothing else done. So if you have an urgent question, you can email me directly, or you can, depending on what type of question it is, if it's a DA question or about your disbursement authorization, you can email compliance@kw.com. So let me here. So compliance@kwdowntown.com if you have a more urgent question. So you can email me directly and or compliance@kwdowntown.com. And that will actually go to our Gmail inbox versus the command messages. I'm mostly only looking at those when I go into a file to review it. So if you have something that's more urgent, email me and or the KW Downtown compliance email, okay? Alrighty. So let me show you kind of what one looks like after it's been reviewed. Okay, this is a listing file of mine that's been reviewed, and you can see here that each document that I've uploaded has been approved. If it was not approved, it would say returned here, and there would be a note why it was returned, and that would tell me, okay, I need to do this and then resubmit it for it to be reviewed again and then approved. But if everything's approved, and then I will change the entire folder to approved status. And so once both your listed or consultation file, or should say folder, is approved, and your under contract folder is approved, then the entire transaction will be tagged. And I don't think you guys can see the tag, but we'll add a tag to it that says ready for DA. And a DA stands for Disbursement Authorization. And so the way agency and the way Colorado law works is commission is only payable to the brokerage, right? Commission is from broker to broker. So when we close a transaction, the commission is for Keller Williams Realty Downtown, right? Regardless of what our splits are and all that, the commission gets paid to Keller Williams Realty Downtown. Now, if you want to be paid at the closing table, if you want the title company to give you a check directly to you that you can deposit for whatever your split is, then you need something called a disbursement authorization, or DA. Sometimes the title company will refer to it as a CDA, a commission disbursement authorization. And what that form does is it gives the title company the authorization to pay you as the agent directly for whatever amount of commission you are owed versus paying all of the commission directly to the brokerage, okay? If you don't have a DA for whatever reason, maybe you forgot to submit your file on time, it wasn't approved on time, you just didn't get a DA prior to closing, that's okay. You will still get paid. The title company will just pay the entire commission to the brokerage, and then Britt will cut your check directly to you. Obviously, that takes a few more days after closing to get that done. So that's the downside there, but you will still get paid, don't worry, as soon as your file is completely compliant and approved. But if you want to get paid at closing, you do need the DA prior to closing, and you need to make sure the title company has it prior to closing. So Paula just asked, what is the associate royalty fee part of the 30% split? So all agents in Keller Williams pay the same exact cap. We call it a cap. So the commission split owed to Keller Williams is the same for every single agent, regardless of production. When you're on a team, it changes a little bit, but for the most part, for individual agents, everyone, doesn't matter if you sell $200 million a year or $2 million a year, you pay the same amount. So we pay 30% to Keller Williams Realty Downtown and 6% to Keller Williams International. Okay, so it's really a 36% split until you hit the capped amounts, which is $3,000 to Keller Williams International. So you pay 6% of every transaction to Keller Williams International until you hit $3,000. And you pay 30% of every transaction to Keller Williams Downtown until you hit $18,000. Okay, does that answer your question, Paula? If it doesn't, just type in the chat box.
Yeah, you answered my question. Thanks.
Perfect. Okay, so how do we start that DA process to get a DA? So obviously, once you have your documents uploaded, actually, let me go back to my example here. Okay. So once we have our documents uploaded and submitted, and obviously after you go under contract, so you won't do this until you are actually under contract. And actually, before we go into that, let's just click on the under contract folder here and go through some of these documents that are required. So you can see here, anything that says required, obviously is required. However, that doesn't mean just the ones that are required are required. Depending on the type of transaction or what is involved in the transaction, some additional documents are going to be required that most of them are marked, conditional. So if there was a counter offer, then obviously that needs to be added. If there's a post-closing occupancy, then that needs to be added, okay? But if those things didn't exist for that transaction, then don't worry about it. Your multiple full under contract listing printout. So this you're going to find in Matrix in RE Colorado. So you're going to go to the listing. I'm just going to pull a random listing here. You're going to go to print. You want the full property view of the listing. Going to print to PDF here, save it on, download it on your computer, and then add it into Command like all of your other documents, okay? Earnest money receipt, seller's property disclosure. There are some cases in which a seller does not provide this. So if a document is marked required and the seller has not provided it, or it's not part of that transaction for some reason, that's when you want to leave me a note. Just say seller did not provide property disclosure, just so I know, because I'm going to kick it back if I don't know that. So if there's something that's a little unusual or something that would help me with the review process, just leave a note in the comment section. If the source of water is not filled out on the property disclosure, or if there's no property disclosure, then the source of water is required. Square footage disclosure. If the house was built prior to 1978, you need a lead-based paint disclosure. This is one in which everyone needs to sign it. Buyers, sellers, listing agent, buyer's agent, okay? Everyone needs to sign this form. Some forms I'm a little lenient on. This is not one of them. This is a form that is mandated by federal law. The fines for not following the lead-based paint laws are massive. So this is one that I'm going to be very stickler on, that it's filled out properly, completely, and signed by everybody. If there's closing instructions, sometimes if it's not one of our Keller Williams Downtown listing, there may not be closing instructions. If it is our listing, they are required. Title commitment. Sometimes there will be changes to the title commitment and they will send you different versions. So if the price changed or exceptions were deleted or something on the title commitment changed, the title company will send you a new version. So there's a couple spots here where you can add those different versions as you get them. Inspection objection, and then inspection resolution or withdrawn objection. So I've kept these as required, even though the last few months it's becoming more and more common that either a buyer is removing their right to object from the contract or they're not objecting to anything. So this is one of those things where you leave me a comment. If you're submitting a file and an objection doesn't exist because the buyer chose not to object, leave me a little note. Say, buyer chose not to object, or no objection, no resolution. Now, if the buyer chose not to do an inspection at all, that's where this form comes into play. And it is not marked as required. However, this is one of those, like, highly, highly, highly encourage you to use this form whenever it's applicable, because this will protect you in the future. And if you think about this, the command document section as your filing cabinet, again, don't just focus on what's required, bare minimum. Add anything that's applicable to the transaction to this file. The reason being, if you are ever sued in the future, which you can be completely innocent, have done nothing wrong as an agent in the transaction and still be pulled into a lawsuit. I've seen it happen multiple times. It is a much less stressful process if you have a very complete file. You can be sued 2 years from now for something that, a deal that closed today. So you're not going to remember details or be able to easily find documents in your email or on your computer from 2 years ago. So again, there are the required documents, but view that as the very bare minimum. You can add whatever you want, whatever you think is applicable to a transaction to your file. There's no such thing as adding too much paperwork as long as it's relevant. Because if you're ever in the situation where you're sued, you're audited, or a client reaches out to you in the future and has a question about something, the more complete your file is, the easier it's going to be for you. Okay. So this is one of those things, buyer acknowledgement of inspection and home warranty. If your client just chooses not to have an inspection at all, this form can be found in CTM. Oops, wrong area. Okay, create new contract. So we scroll down to our Damien Cox Forms, the third one down, buyer acknowledgement, inspection, and home warranty. This, again, highly, highly recommend if your buyer is choosing not to have an inspection and or not to purchase a home warranty, because that's one of those things that the number one reason that an agent is pulled into a lawsuit is something goes wrong in the house after closing. Something breaks, there is a leak, who knows what, and we could have done nothing wrong, but they're angry, and attorneys know that we have E&O insurance, and the insurance company is more likely to just settle and give them money to make it go away versus fight our innocence. That's the reality of it. So, and I have had this happen. I was a managing broker at another brokerage, and our agent did nothing wrong, did everything to the T correctly, and the insurance company still paid, I think, $10,000 or $12,000 to the buyer, or I forget which side of the transaction it was. We'll say to the buyer, just to make it go away, because it would have cost more in legal fees to fight that we did nothing wrong. Unfortunately, that's the reality. So if you're ever in that situation, and if you're in this business long enough, the chances are you will be one day. You want to make sure that you're protecting yourself. This is one of those forms. The buyer moves in, something goes wrong. They didn't have the property inspected. They're looking for someone to be angry at, someone to sue. And you have this form to say, no, look, I advised you that you had the right to have the property inspected and you chose not to. And you had the right to have a home warranty and you chose not to. And you signed it. Black and white, they cannot argue against this, okay? So this is one of those forms that's not marked as required, but if it's applicable, please use it, okay? It's a CYA form. And that's true with everything. Like, you just want to think of worst case scenario and how to protect yourself if they ever came back and said, well, you didn't tell me this, or you told me this, even though you didn't. Have everything in writing. So if they choose to get an inspection, I always recommend add the inspection report. So again, the way that inspectors send that report to you is usually via a link that expires, so that won't be available forever. So download the report, add it here, and there's no question of if they had an inspection and who their inspector was or what came up on the inspection. And then also, if they had inspection but chose not to object to anything, you're not going to have anything for this placeholder. However, I do recommend getting something in writing from them. It can be a text message or an email, and just downloading that or taking a screenshot of it that says that is from the buyer, that says something along the lines of they're choosing not to object to anything. They're choosing to move forward with the house as is. Okay. Again, it's black and white. They can never say, well, you didn't tell me that I had the right to object and negotiate with the seller. So if they're choosing not to object, it's always best to have something in writing that they made that choice. Okay. So there's three, any questions on that?
I have a question. Is that, you're saying from the buyer, would that come from the agent, or the buyer would
The buyer
have to?
acknowledgement.
Yes,
So-
you said to like, if they're choosing not to object, to have something in writing. So something in writing from the buyer, or something just from you telling the other agent, hey, my buyer is choosing not to object?
From the buyer. So from your client. So your client directing you or telling you that they are choosing not to object. Okay. Because you don't want in the future for them to ever come back and say, well, we never had the opportunity to negotiate for this issue, or we never had the opportunity to back out. And so you want something in writing from them that says, Like we've reviewed the inspection report and we're choosing to move forward as is. We're choosing not to object, okay? And then you don't have to provide proof that you told that to the listing agent, but that the buyer is directing you that they're okay moving forward as is. So, okay, so I'm gonna kind of speed up here because we're already at noon. Question, okay. So there's a few spots for amendments if you have an amend extend. So whether it's a price change or a seller credit or anything that you're changing with the contract, there's 3 spots here for amend extends. If you need to add something additional, like if you have a 4th amendment or there's just something that there's not a placeholder here for, you can add as many documents as you want. I mean, there's a lot of placeholders here, mostly as a just a reminder for you of what you could possibly add or things that could be involved. For example, if the contract terminates, if your notice of terminate and release of earnest money, that goes here. So add those and submit to the office. Graciela, I will, I don't know where, I think they upload it to YouTube. I'll make sure that that Cheryl lets everybody know where the recording is. Okay, but thank you for coming. And I know it's going a little long, so thank you for those sticking in there. But if you have to go, I'll have Cheryl post where this recording will be. Okay, so if you have to add additional documents, click add item up here. You can name it, document type. You can add as many documents as you want that are relevant. Okay, if there's not a placeholder for it. So again, this is your file cabinet. So put any document that you think would be helpful. Okay, so commissions, how to get your DA. So this will be the last thing that we talk about, and then we'll be done. So maybe 5 to 10 more minutes. So once you're under contract and you've added your documents and you've submitted that, made that initial submission to the office of your documents, go ahead and click on offers and commissions. So there's a few steps that you have to go through before you get to the commissions page, which will give you the ability to tell the office how to pay you. So you have to add a new offer, entitle it whatever you would like, create offer. You're just going to fill in the details here. What's the offer date? What's the close date? What's the address? I hope this doesn't mess up the system, but we'll go here. The parties. Anything that obviously has a red star is required. The terms. So you're going to put in what was their down payment, what was the part or the financed amount. It will total the sales price here. You can put in the earnest money amount if you want. And that information, I do encourage you to fill it in. Actually, these don't have stars next to them, but I have a feeling they are required. But even if they're not required, oh, thank you, Sharon. She's told me it won't mess anything up and she can delete it. So I won't actually submit the commissions, but okay, so adding this information is good because part of the beauty of Command is aggregate data, big data of what is the average earnest money amount in the zip code? What is the average financed amount in the zip code? Eventually we'll have access to all that data as more agents are putting it into the system. So that was kind of the whole point of building Command from Gary's perspective, is to control the data and have that information to empower our agents with that information. So, okay, so the termination option and seller costs aren't really applicable most of the time here. You can add pros and cons and a summary. And this process, if you're a listing agent and you have multiple offers and you want to be able to compare them or send them to the seller with a comparison, that's what this is for. So you can add multiple offers here and then it will compare them side by side. I don't use a system because I have a a spreadsheet that I use, a multiple offer comparison spreadsheet that is just more detailed, and it comes with a, or I add an estimated proceeds with it. So I've never used this, but you can. You're going to hit save there. Then it's going to pop up the commission, or actually, this is still the offer side. So you're going to hit accept. So you have to accept that offer before the commission option pops up. Okay. So you notice once you accept it, this manage commission button shows up. So you're going to click on that. And this is where, if any of you have been around for a little while, this is the new green sheet. We used to have to fill out something called a green sheet. And this is where you tell the office how to pay you, okay? Or what the splits are, if there's a referral fee, things like that. So you notice this is missing the contract date. I don't know why that doesn't auto-populate. That bothers me. But if you need to change the commission rate, say this one was only 2.5%, it will automatically calculate your total commission there. Total units. Again, if you're on a team, this could be a little bit different. So if you're on a team, I'm sure your team leader will help you, or you probably have a team transaction coordinator that will do this for you. Contract date. Okay, save. And then the agent payment section is where it's going to show you your breakdown of commission. So if you are capped, so right now I am capped. So this is showing as I don't, wouldn't pay any royalty or company commission on this. If there's additional deductions, for example, if you're making donations to KW Cares, KW Kids Can, Bold Scholarship, you can add that. Or if there's a referral fee, you add that by going in here. You can fill these out if you want to donate. So I donate money on almost every closing to KW Cares or KW Kids Can. And then if there's an additional payment out of the commission, you can add it here. So if there's a concession, so if you're giving the seller some type of concession out of your commission, there's a deduction from your commission. The most common is going to be an outside referral. Okay, so if you're paying an agent or that lead, so someone from a Keller Williams in Ohio referred you a client and you're paying them 25%. So you would fill that out here. You do need anytime you get an incoming referral that we are paying a referral fee on, you do need that brokerage's W-9. Okay, that will give us the tax ID and a referral agreement. Okay, so it will give us the EIN for that brokerage, which we need for tax purposes if we are paying them. So if you don't have that W-9, you won't be able to fill out and submit your commission section. So make sure you get that W-9. I know a couple times I've not been able to submit my commission file because I didn't have that. And couldn't fill this out. Okay. So make sure you fill out all of that information. And sorry, we just got a quote or a message from Eva. Agents in, I'm just going to go add these fees properly. Okay, so we do have a video. So I guess it's a very common mistake to not add these fees in here properly. So we do have a video that shows exactly how to fill this out properly, so it doesn't have to be changed. So anyone, for those of you who are new agents in the foundational coaching program, as soon as you go under contract, you will get a video that is sent out to you that shows you how to fill this out properly, because there are fees if you're paying fees to the foundational coaching program, or if you are in arts advanced coaching program, there's a fee on that. So if you have additional fees that you're paying for coaching, make sure that before you submit this, reach out if you don't know how to add those fees, or ask for the video, and we'll make sure that we have those added properly so it doesn't have to be changed. So once you submit this, you do not have the ability to change it from your end. You'll have to contact either Britt or Sharon or someone on the leadership team to be able to change that for you on the back end. Yeah, please help us not do double the work. And so before submitting, just make sure everything is right and everything is added. If you have questions, reach out first. So thank you, Eva.
Thank
Okay.
you for reading that, Amy. I probably could have just unmuted and made it a little bit easier. I do appreciate you. I just want, and it also makes it easier for agents to get paid at closing, because then if we have to go through and fix everything, and that can take, 1 to 2 days turnaround, and a lot of agents aren't getting paid at closing. So it just makes it easier and better for everybody.
Yes. And that's the goal. We all want to make sure you guys get paid as quickly as possible, right? But at that point, if you do submit your commissions tab, so once you have everything filled out and it all looks good and you're confident that it's correct, you're going to hit submit here. I'm not going to do it, Sharon, so we don't have to go back in and undo it. I'm gonna hit submit here, and once we do that, from the agent side, it cannot be changed. So oftentimes after you've submitted this and a DA has been created for you, you might have a price change happen. If that's the case, and you need a new DA to make sure you're getting paid the correct amount, email the compliance at KW Downtown, and a new DA will, and let them know, it's either Sharon or Britt, let them know that the price has changed, what the new price is, and ask them to upload or update the DA, and then they will add the new DA to your file. So once you submit this and it's approved and your file has been completely approved in the document section, a DA will be added for you in the closed file here. So this top placeholder, DA to send a title. So Sharon will add your DA here once your file has been completely approved. So usually within 24 hours after your file being completely approved and compliant, and if you have submitted your commissions tab, I'm guilty of forgetting to submit the commissions tab once, and I emailed Sharon like, hey, where's my DA? She's like, hey, haven't submitted your commissions tab. So once everything is approved and has been submitted properly, the DA will be added here for you, and you can just download that and send it to the title company. Okay, and that's how you get paid at the closing table. All righty. There's a lot of information. Hopefully it was somewhat helpful, but what questions do you guys have?
So when we go under contract, there will be a video sent to us to walk us through this entire thing, or just part of it?
It sounds like if you're in the foundational coaching program, the video is for the commissions tab, because there's a split that is paid to the coaches. You need to add that in as one of these, let's see, additional deductions. So I think there's a video that will be sent to you on how to add that in properly. But this is being recorded. So if you ever have to reference back to this, this training, this will be posted, I believe, on our YouTube channel. I will have Cheryl send out where we post it, because I'm not 100% sure. When the time comes, because I know if you're a new agent and you don't have business yet, and when the time comes, you're like, oh my gosh, what do I do? This will be posted for you, so you can reference this video. And then as far as the commissions tab goes, if you're in the coaching program, there's a video for that.
Okay, great. Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions? All right. As always, you can reach out to me. My email is a.campbell@kw.com. Or you can also reach out via the compliance email address if you have more of a DA question. But if you can't remember my email or my name, just email the compliance at kwdowntown.com, and it will get to me if it's relevant to me. So if you ever need help with your files, please reach out. You can refer back to this training video as well. But hopefully this is helpful. Sorry, it ran a little long, but thank you all for joining. Yasmina, do you have a question?
I do. So with the closing documents that they send you after you close,
Yes.
and I know if anybody needs to go, I guess, if they send them like all together, do you have to split them up, or can you just like upload that file into all of them?
That's a good question. There are some title companies that do a really good job of, like Land Title sends us each one individually. That's easy to download individually to upload into these placeholders. I do know that some title companies don't do that. They send it all as one PDF. My preference is that you split them. I understand that's a pain in the butt. And honestly, I don't even know the best way. I'm sure there's an easy way out there. If you don't have a DA or a TC to do that for you, I will still approve the file as long as everything is in there. If it's just in one PDF, like in the closing documents, okay? It just takes me a little bit longer because then I have to scroll through and make sure everything is there versus easily seeing like, okay, all these placeholders are filled and each document that's in those placeholders is correct. So I understand that's a pain in the butt. So if it's possible to split them, or they, the title company did it for you, great. If it's one PDF and you don't have an easy way to split them, I understand. And you can go ahead and upload it as one PDF. It's not preferred, but I get it. So.
And can you only upload a PDF, or can you upload a JPEG?
You can only upload a PDF. I believe. I'm pretty sure it's just a PDF. So good question. So I guess I didn't address the closing folder. After closing, the title company will send you all the signed documents, and the ones that are marked required here, I would say depending on the type of transaction, but you're going to have every single one of these. And most of these documents that are marked as required are required by the state. So it's not me. Don't get mad at me. Don't shoot the messenger. Required by the state. So if you're ever audited and the file is not complete, you can get fined. That's one of the reasons that we have this system. And also some of them are required by our attorney. So the only one that you might not have is this final title commitment, which that's fine, because as long as the title commitment is in your under contract folder, I'm good with that if you don't have that final one. But all the rest of these you should have from the title company and upload after closing. And then Sharon said you can always print the individual pages to PDF with a PDF printer. Okay. So I know in the past I've used .loop because they have an easy way to split a PDF. So that's the way that I've found works easy for me. But if you do have a PDF printer, there's usually an option to print to PDF individual pages. You can say page 1 to 2 is print as or save as one document, and so on and so forth. So I understand it's cumbersome and not ideal. So we would.
How long does it?
Oh, go ahead.
Sorry. How long does the title company have to send us those closing docs?
They should send them usually I get them the same day, unless it's a late afternoon closing. And then they'll send, or late Friday closing, and they'll send them on Monday. But they'll usually send them within that one business day after closing, because everything's already signed, right? They have everything. They just need to scan it and send it to us. So you usually get it right away. If you don't, reach out to the title closer and ask for them to send it.
I have a question.
Sure.
So why, like if an audit comes in for our documents, we don't own those documents. KW owns the document. That's why you guys are doing this compliance. So we can use either request it from you or send them to you, not you, but the company, to audit my files on that company, isn't it?
Well, let
Because
me,
I don't, from the beginning that I signed, I don't know anything anymore. That's why Keller Williams gets paid all the money. And that's why we got permission for Keller Williams to get paid or portion of it. So documents really are the company's property.
correct. So documents, contracts belong to the brokerage. So for example, if you were an agent at another brokerage and you had a listing agreement with that brokerage, and then you joined Keller Williams, you couldn't just bring that contract to Keller Williams and upload that in a file here and it be effective. So say you were with Remax prior to joining Keller Williams. Any contracts that were filled out at Remax belong to Remax. And they would have to either be terminated and then new ones drafted under your new brokerage, or depending on the company policy, they stay with the brokerage. So does that answer your question, Gil?
Yes and no. So my question is, in an audit, you mentioned audits, like the commission decide to audit your files. Yeah, that's the part. Then I can say to the commission, well, call my broker and they can give you the files that I wrote for that in behalf of that company, right?
Correct. Yes. So if the state audits you, and I've never been through an audit in Colorado, I do know our entire brokerage was audited a few years ago prior to me being here, but I believe it's more likely for the brokerage to be audited versus an agent. More commonly, you as an agent will have to provide documentation if there's an ethics complaint against you, or if you're pulled into a lawsuit. But again, we will assist you if that is the case, right? Or if you are no longer with our market center and you needed access to those documents, a year down the road for whatever reason, we can always provide those for you. So because we have them stored in the system. But for that reason, a lot of agents choose to keep their own files as well. So they have their own, they download them basically twice. They keep file system on their computer or an external hard drive somewhere, as well as the company required system, in our case, Command.
Thank you.
Okay, did that answer it for you? Any other questions before we wrap up? All right, well, I know it's a lot of information and sometimes it's not applicable until you have that first contract. So if you have questions when that time comes, you can reach out. We're here to help you. Thank you for attending today and have a great afternoon.
Thank you.